let's get our next superstar guest on, Mr. Karl Beckett. And let's Carl is a actually he's a supporter of business. He coaches, he organizes, and he's even got his own podcast as well that he kindly interrogated me on. Good morning, Carl.
Good morning, Amar.
Good morning,
Excuse me.
Tom.
Good morning. Good morning.
Lovely to have you on. Sorry, we were just ranting and raving about everything and anything, Carl, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as people who pay a lot of tax.
Yes.
So we'll probably talk about death and taxes, a little bit about football, a little bit about religion, and a little bit about politics.
Oh, great. A great combination.
Well, we won't, because I think they're all of the things that you're not meant to talk about, aren't
Oh,
they?
you're
So,
not? Oh, I thought you
well,
were
I
going to
don't
ask
know.
me about the
Let's
farmers and the tax.
let's free flow. So thank you ever so much, Carl. Welcome to our weekly show right here on Show Business Spice FM, and I'm joined by Jaff. He's going to introduce himself in a minute, but let's start by you seeing who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Thank you. My name's Karl Beckett. I have a business called Karl Beckett Business Walks, and I take leaders out into the countryside, into the fells, the coastlines, the woods, to help them become more effective. In essence, better teams, better decision making, um, just more effective leadership. And I've been doing the business for about 9 years now, and I take them also through my Resilience Valley model. And I started my life as a chart surveyor. Started my life as a shepherd, and and I've been in the countryside all my life, and I spent a lot of time working in the countryside. Started as a chart surveyor, then moved into family business, and I think over those times, I've just developed a lot of resilience. I've supported my teams. I had 500 staff under me, and I've really always enjoyed that supportive nature of work and collaboration, working together. And it's something that I find the countryside gives you that freedom, that self-expression to think creatively. I'm, quite a creative thinker. And so that environment that I work in allows me to do that. So, and in essence, I help leaders become more effective, they grow, they find more clarity and meaning in their workplace. So, and also in their personal lives.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Carl. And Jaff, introduce yourself. You need to get out into the countryside, don't you?
Well, I'm just thinking that if that's where all the creativity comes from, I think I've spent all of my life, contrary to yourself, Carl. I'm a I'm a local restaurateur based in Newcastle upon Tyne, and actually, all of my businesses are situated in the city centre, in and around the bright lights, and they're kind of walking distance from each other. One of them being in Jesmond, which is only about a mile away from the city centre. So equally, I guess we've tried to be creative and be innovative, all of which we've done by having a presence within the city centre. So there you go, complete contrast to where you are. And but I think it's interesting, isn't it? It's such a parity from your story and my story.
Yeah, I think though it's about the environment as well though. I'm obviously really comfortable in the countryside, but I used to do a lot of buildings. We used to construct and design, and it's creating that environment where you really thrive. I think that's the key.
You see, for ourselves, our business model, we actually our desire is to be in the city centre because
Mm.
we feel we're in hospitality. We feel all the best operators are in the city centre because that's where you expect them to be in most cities. Whether it be, if you go to London, you would always want to check out Mayfair or Soho because you think, yeah, there's some great places that are going to be dotted around, but there would have to be something the best of the best would have to be in those areas, and equally in Newcastle city centre, there would have to be some of the best restaurants in the city centre to reflect the city. So we've always felt that we were more challenged in the city centre, in our sector for sure, and that's why we would want to be there.
Brilliant. I was just making a couple of notes there because I like to make notes. And I don't think, Jaff, that Carl's saying it's one or the other. I think,
No,
and I'm really interested in, and I might even convince Jaff and I, Carl, to come out on one of your missions, um, and get out there because you're absolutely right. Having someone support business leaders getting out into the fresh air, getting away from that constant on that exists, whether that's city centre or whether that's digitally or whether it's a bit of both, is absolutely critical. So what got you into this, Carl? Tell us a little bit more. So 9 years you've been doing this.
Yes.
Why?
Well, I
What
started
was
my
the
life.
catalyst?
Well, I think I started my life as a shepherd, believe it or not, because training as a chartered surveyor, they used to say to us that you're going to be dealing with farmers and talking to them, so must need to know what it's like to be in their shoes, and that's why I often talk about clients. Go go and be in the shoes of your customers and see what it's really like for them. So I was out, working out in the countryside, and I spent all my life, involved with the countryside in one shape or form or the other, working in it. And so when I left the family firm, a number of my staff said, "Have you thought about being a coach?" And I thought, no, at the time. And after retraining, and I just sort of naturally progressed to taking people outdoors. It wasn't I suddenly didn't think I have a light bulb moment. I naturally took people outdoors, and resilience was a big key theme. So, that is something that is just sort of naturally. I think sometimes in life we want to always see, feel, and purpose is really important. You need to know where your North Star is. But sometimes it's just moving forward and one step after the other, and suddenly the doors open. And that's what it was like for me.
can I ask you, Carl? You used the word resilience quite a few times.
Mm.
Now, do you is resilience, is that something that's intrinsic, or is that something that you can actually work on an individual to teach them resilience?
Oh, I'm a massive believer on the latter. It's something that you can, something you develop, and over time, learn those skills. And often they're going through sometimes, well, in my case, it's going through sometimes that adversity, and you've become stronger for it. And when I used to be running up on the fells in the Pennines, you need that resilience to get up the next hill, and you have to find it from within yourself. And sometimes, when I left the family firm, I had to pick myself up off the floor. It was a real low moment for me, and I had to just learn those skills. So I think it's definitely the latter. You can definitely develop it.
Interesting, because I thought really part of it was really how you built with it, because I feel that today, resilience, especially amongst the younger group, they are not resilient as how I guess the teams used to be.
Yes, and I know I hear that back a lot from clients actually, and I think sometimes we've got to be careful we don't sort of just pigeonhole the youth as this area, because I've met some very resilient individuals and some lovely people. And I think where one of my big, I have a resilience family model which I take people through, and it has 7 tools, if you like, if you work your way through it, and it's all practical stuff and it works. But really underneath all of that, it's getting out your comfort zone. I always say getting out your comfort zone in something that you are, quite good at or strong at, or, it's something, you wouldn't say, let's go and swim the channel if you weren't a good swimmer or you had never swum before. So get out your comfort zone. And I think with youth that we do, I think there's too much done for them. And if I went back to my father's generation, they really had to just survive on their own. They didn't have any protection or support. They really had to survive. And I think there's a little bit of that in society that we try and do too much for them, support them too much. And sometimes, well, I know you develop resilience by getting out your comfort zone.
I think you're absolutely right, Carl. There is this significant ease or convenience that people generally have become accustomed to, and that includes, and in particular, young people. You're equally right in pointing out we shouldn't be pigeonholing young people or pretty much everyone. The general challenge is as young people get more isolated and insulated, they don't have those opportunities to develop resilience and those problem solving skills as well. I think that's a real issue for young people and people more broadly. It's everything's done digitally now. Everything's convenient. You don't need to go out anywhere. You don't need to do anything. You don't even need to go out to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the good old days, that was what you'd done, and even playing out, you'd go out in the morning, and you'd come back late afternoon, and get a clip and where you been, and I've been shouting you for all day, and it was like that was just normal, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. The word you touched on there was isolation, because I think we have become, as a society, I think, a little bit more isolated. I mean, I know one of the things that's the big for you is inclusivity, so support, and I've always been a massive fan of community. Work, whatever your community is, whether it's in the city centre of Newcastle or whether it's out where I live, out in the Thumberland, really put your effort and time into your community. And I think young people particularly, and also, as you said, adults, we just get isolated in this world, and everything's done, as you say, digitally. And I think also it's about those conversations you have, those experiences you have when you're meeting face to face. I'm not so sure you can easily gain that from elsewhere. You learn so much from those interactions, and also you just have that. I've always been a big believer, all therapy is good, whether that's going for a walk, going for a pint with your friends, or going for a tea and a coffee, a meal, or for a massage or whatever it is. But what gets you back off that floor is your friends and your family around you, that support system. So, if you've got yourself into an isolated position, life can be a bit tough.
No, very much so. So, Carl, I'm really interested because I think this is a critical conversation. Just picked up on this resilience part within your introduction, but you also talked about like a framework or something like that. Have you developed
Yeah, no, it's just a framework which I've created, like a valley. So you go from one end of the valley across to the other side. And so you start on that side where you've had that, whether it's trauma or often it can be a lot of change in life. And sometimes, for some people, it can be you'd be thinking, why they got so upset? That's nothing to be bothered about. But actually, it's affected them quite considerably. So so whatever that change or events happen in your life, and then it's how you get across that valley to the other side. And there's the Kubler-Ross curve, which is a similar sort of process where you go from one side to the other. Is all about those emotions when you're going through grief. And so you go through those emotions through change, and it's just about using the tools that I've sort of developed over the years to get through that. And that's, from looking after yourself physically. Often when people go through change or stress, if you like, the first things that go is sleep, water, food, exercise. They can be some of the biggest wins overnight that can really help you be more resilient. And support system, lots of talking about reflection, facing the brutal facts, and hope and purpose is such a big puller that people that can pull you out of the bottom of the valley, if you like, or get you from one side of the cross to the other. Having that, as in business, both of you, that having that hope and that purpose is so critical. But I often talk about, if you have that hope and purpose, if you don't take any action, it's just a dream. And so my last tool on my valley, if you like, is the commitment to action, and just take that one single step forward, and it will snowball so fast forward. You will just move so fast forward if you can just think about what's that first step I need to take. And so that's in the general nature of it anyway.
So action, commitment,
Yeah.
having purpose,
Yes.
are some of the things that you've talked about. Carl, if Jeff and I is it a group? Like, do you work
So
with
I
a
do
group of
groups.
leaders?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be doing a walking retreat in North Wales in the spring. But
Right.
generally, I do groups up in the coast, up in Northumberland, or in the Pennines. Um, and so, but I do a lot of one-to-one mentoring and
Right.
coaching. So, and that's usually half a day out for individuals. So it's there's
Does
two.
that look like, Carl? As in, if
So
Jeff and I say, right, we want to come and get out and get away,
yes.
and and you'll then take us somewhere out into the
Yeah,
countryside,
so if it
and
was individuals, like if I was just taking one of you out, which is a lot of my work, I would
yeah,
take you out to a place that's probably no longer than an hour from your work or home. And then what we
right,
would do is we would go out for a walk for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It would be the walk would be positioned on what I thought your capability was, what you thought were easy to handle. And then we go back to a cafe or hotel and really thrash out a sort of action plan, a learnings of what we've learned out in that environment. And that is really as important as the walk, actually. And generally, they're usually half a day. If you were doing a group and I was taking a group of a business out, what I'd be doing is I'd be taking out the group to a sort of indoor hall. Usually, I use a lot of village halls actually, and small hotels out in the countryside. And what we would do is we would do a sort of leadership and resilience workshop, some interactive stuff, and then I generally ask them to think about a problem they've got within the business that we can group as a group work through those issues. So I sort of group facilitate that. And that is really, really rewarding because they leave with sort of an action plan and a learnings, just as they do with the one-to-one work. And then we all go for a walk as a group, and it's a great way of bonding people. I find
right.
it's very powerful.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Carl, for coming on our radio show right here on Spice FM.
No,
If
thank
someone
you.
wants to find out a little bit more around getting out or getting some plans or
Yeah.
just getting better for the new year, because that's what people are starting to think about,
Yes.
where would they find out more about you?
I've got a website of www.carl with a K Beckett with two T's.co.uk. So if they look for carlbeckett.co.uk, they can find me on there.
Brilliant. And
But
in the
but
last 30 seconds, what would you be doing for your leadership plans for 2025?
I think a bit of reflection about where where we're going to be going, what we're going to be achieving, and I think also, and a touch of what you've always said about collaborating. So I think I'm going to be collaborating a little bit more in my industry because I think that's important. And I think likewise for others. And I think just getting also to really talk to your customers and find out what their pains and problems are.
Brilliant. Thank you ever
Thank
so
you for
much.
joining me.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.